Welcome to the You've Heard It Said podcast, a happy hour podcast where we rethink faith, church, and the culture that shapes us. I'm Jared Hunsinger, pastor, occasional heretic, and follower of Jesus.
And I'm Bill Huckabee, author, longtime healthcare professional, and a recently awakened skeptic, giving faith and church a second look.
So whether you're deconstructing, reconstructing, or just trying to understand what's under the hood of modern Christianity, you're in the right place.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of the You've Heard It Said podcast. Most people didn't think we'd make it this far, but yep, this is episode 3. We got called back to do it, so we're excited about it. Jared shared with you last week. That last week and this week are just introductions of kind of who we are and how we got to this place on our journey of faith. I got an opportunity to kind of introduce my background and sharing with you kind of how I arrived here. And today, Jared's going to be sharing his story. And it's exciting to hear it from the vantage point of somebody who is working as a pastor through this whole time and the challenges that come from that. So I know a lot of Jared's story, but I'm excited to hear it again. And I know there'll be parts of it that I will be new to me as well. So Jared, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Here we go. Episode 3. So, yes, I am Jared. I am a pastor here. Now I'm currently a pastor in Salt Lake City. It's a very different, very new assignment for me. It hasn't even been a full year that I've been here. So let me kind of tell you how I got from California to Salt Lake, and everything in between. Like many other evangelical Christians, I grew up in a Christian family, in a Christian home. I was exposed to faith and church at a very young age. I can even, remember that first moment of accepting Jesus into my heart in a Sunday school classroom, maybe 5 or 6 years old, and they had these paper mache flowers on the wall, and I remember praying with a Sunday school teacher. But it wasn't really until maybe my junior high, senior high years that my faith became really important to me. Is at that time I started going to a youth group at my church, and I remember feeling like I didn't have anywhere else in the world that I felt accepted and I felt safe. And so youth group for me was that place, that safe, accepted place. Um, and so I was pretty active and pretty involved in youth group through those years. And then I made another radical decision when I was 18 years old, right out of high school. I kind of had things mapped out. I had planned on going into a computer engineering program at San Jose State to do a degree there. But when I was 18, in that lapse time in between my high school year and college year, decided to do a short-term mission trip with actually another church, a local church in the Sacramento area. And so we went to Hong Kong, and our trip, our mission was to smuggle Bibles over the border from Hong Kong into mainland China for the underground church. And we spent about a month doing this, and every day we would sneak these Bibles over the border. And I saw God in so many unique ways show up on this trip. I saw him in the people that we met. I saw him in the faith of the pastors that were pastoring these underground churches. I saw the supernatural as God opened the doors for us to bring those Bibles over the border. And I remember coming home from that trip feeling like nothing else mattered in the world. I had a new appreciation for the scripture. I had a new appreciation for how big God was. And I decided I can't just go be a computer guy. I need to do something that that matters more. So
Wow.
for me, that meant signing up to go to Bible college. I went to a small Bible college in Redding, California, called Simpson Bible College. I ended up doing 4 years there, and I did a Bible and theology degree with an emphasis in Old Testament studies. And that was the first time I got any kind of exposure to Hebrew. And I have since always loved the Old Testament, and loved Hebrew. Uh, and while I was there, I'd stayed plugged in with my local church, the one that I grew up in, and they ended up offering me a job right out of Bible college to come be a youth pastor at the church. So I graduated on a Friday. I started full time pastoral ministry on a Sunday, the next Sunday.
Wow.
So I had one day off.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, I was 21 years old. Um, I was single, and I was pastoring junior high, senior high students. We had a fairly good sized youth group, around 50 kids. And it was a wild time in my life. I just remember I had all these ideas from Bible college, and now I had an outlet to do them. And so we did all the crazy things. We went to all the conferences that came through Sacramento, all the Christian conferences. Um, I taught all the Bible lessons that I'd learned along the way with these students, and really just learned to how to love students. And I still have a heart for students and for young people, although it's a whole different ballgame nowadays. That the things they deal with, the amount of time they have on their phones. But I digress. Uh, so while I was pastoring there, I met my wife Lisa, and met her in the church. We ended up getting married, and I was a youth pastor for. All in all, I was there for about 12 years at that church. Um, Towards the end of my time there, Lisa and I we had a child. We had our son Jacob. We have one boy. He's 11 now. And when he came along, I remember I couldn't keep up with the all nighters anymore. I felt like I just ran out of energy.
Yeah.
So started to pray for transition and what might be next for my ministry. Meanwhile, I still had continued education, and so was doing a master's degree with Fuller Theological Seminary. Actually did a very similar degree as my undergrad. So I did it's called a Master's of Arts in Biblical Studies and Theology, and with an emphasis in Hebrew. So more Hebrew, more Old Testament. And I loved it. It was fun. They had Extension Campus in Sacramento, so I didn't have to go down to Pasadena. I was able to do the whole thing there.
Mm.
Um, and then when I had finished that, and had finished ordination with the Christian Missionary Alliance, I felt I was ready. It was just time to move out of youth ministry. My church was too small; it wasn't going to have any other opportunities. So, God opened a door to work down the street at a different church with a North American Baptist denomination, and I took on a church plant. So this was a missional church plant done in a low-income neighborhood that was 60% Hispanic, 30% Pakistani. And we planted this little church in downtown Lodi, California. And I loved it. That was a fun, adventurous time. We ended up buying a 100-year-old church building and renovating it. This is where I met Bill along the way, and spent 6 years doing that church plant. And towards the end of that season, my wife Lisa had uh, went back to school and finished her degree, her postgrad degree in cardiac sonography. And so when she graduated, we said, "Okay, Lord, now it's time to move for her career." Kind of said, "We'll go wherever we need to go for her." So we ended up getting a job. She ended up getting a job in Seattle. So we moved from California to Seattle, and I never thought I'd leave California, honestly. Luckily, or maybe unluckily, we Lisa and I both hated Seattle. The lack of sunshine was just not cutting it for us. The rain wasn't so bad, but not having sun was miserable. And so we spent 2 years up there. I kind of floundered looking for a job. I didn't really know a lot of churches or have a lot of connections. So one thing that came up for me was being able to not pastor, chaplain for a Christian school. And so I spent 2 years as the chaplain for Seattle Christian School. It was a K through 12 school, had about 650 students in all. And I was like right back with youth again, going, "Oh Lord, how did this happen?" But there are many things I loved about it, and I still keep in touch with a lot of the students there. Uh, but then I kind of reached a point where I was like, I think it's time. I think it's time to find a church that's willing to take me on as a lead pastor, and I think I'm ready for that next season of ministry. And so that's where God kind of through a series of events opened the door here in Salt Lake City. So now I'm pastoring a church, Discovery Christian Community. We're about 150 people here in Salt Lake, and it's been about a year that I've been here. And ministry in Salt Lake is different. It's a very different ministry context, I would say, than anywhere else in the country. But I love it. And so that's been my ministry career, but I should speak to the deconstruction part. So somewhere along the way, I didn't really tie it in very well, but somewhere along the way, I started a doctoral program with Fuller Seminary, and ended up completing that. Did a dissertation on post-Christian evangelism, and even to this day, I'm still fascinated by post-Christian studies, by the secular age, by exploring kind of this brave new era of ministry. And through those studies of looking at what does it mean to minister in a post-Christian age, how is the U.S. following the footsteps of Europe that is now 2% Christian,
Mm,
and when we look at the secularization of our country, what does that mean for me as a pastor? What does that mean for us as Christians? And what does that mean for our churches? And it's led me to kind of, in a similar way to Bill, question a lot of the things that I took for granted along the way. COVID did play a little bit of a part in that process, but I would say more of it had to do with simply the authors and books that I was being exposed to through the doctoral program at Fuller. And so now Bill and I, we meet pretty regularly, at least once a month, and we talk through the questions we have, and consider these different positions of deconstructing, reconstructing, and um, how do we do our faith well in the modern age and not just do our faith in the way it's always been done, but maybe even get ahead of the curve a little bit when it comes to reaching post-Christian believers in the U.S. So that's my story in a nutshell.
and how has your faith changed, let's say, over the last 5 to 7 years or so, or at what point during that story that you were telling us did you start to maybe ask questions that you didn't have before?
Well, for me, it was more of a slow burn because all along the way, I experienced trauma in the church. Now
Mm.
that was things I experienced while I was pastoring the church, from other church leaders and from other church members. And I wasn't always sure what to do with that. I just knew that the things that I experienced weren't right. Abusive leaders or unrealistic expectations or an absentee uh, superintendent or even manipulation from other pastors. And those things bothered me. Like, it wasn't the safe haven of my childhood that the youth group was. So
Mm.
now I'm in the adult world and I was experiencing things that I knew were wrong. And so those were the seeds of my deconstruction saying, how could this be? And what should church be? And that question really what should it look like opened the door for all kinds of things for me, because I started to realize there's a lot of things that we're doing that maybe we shouldn't be doing. Not even that they're bad, like harmful, but they're just not good, like, or they're not great. Sometimes you have to get rid of a good thing for a great thing, and so that's been kind of how the deconstruction piece fit in for me.
What about the Reconstruction side?
So the Reconstruction side was when I finally reached the end of this doctoral program, and I had to write. Now, it ended up being 185 pages. I had to write 185 pages on what do we do about it, you know, because you and I can get on a Zoom and we can whine about it all we want, which we
Right.
do, and I love it, and it's very nostalgic for my soul. But at
Right.
some point, if you're going to stay in the church, you're going to stay a believer, you have to say, okay, here's what we need to be doing.
Right.
And so that's been the Reconstruction piece. And I'm still figuring it out, but I think I've got a few pieces put together that I didn't have years ago. So I hope those come out through this podcast.
So we're at the end of our time for episode number 3. I really appreciate you sharing all that, Jared, and hopefully there'll be other people out there that can connect with the journey you've been on, and now the questions you're starting to ask and looking for answers for. But great having you people join us again. We look forward to you joining us for episode 4, where we're going to kind of maybe pull all these pieces together and top them off before we start addressing some particular topics that we want to spend some time on. So anyway, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you next time.